What's up, carnivores? Colin here, the Wild CEO for the Carnivore Corner. This is going to be a weekly series. My attempt to simplify some of these ideas, because you can only do so many how to eat a carnivore diet or what is a carnivore diet videos. And the carnivore community and the topic itself isn't as popular as something like keto or some of these other diets, right? So there is limited amount of topics to even talk about that people are going to find. So what I want to do with this Carnivore Corner is I want to talk about some ideas that I'm thinking about and maybe respond to some videos and news and things like that here and there, and hopefully provide some value on a weekly basis that you can tune into that's also entertaining. These are a couple of things that I've been thinking about. I'm not going to do any video responses right now. If you do have ones you'd like me to respond to or talk about or whatever, drop them below in a comment or send me an email, colin@wildfoods.co. And I also want you to send me any questions that I can answer in each Carnivore Corner. I need more of these. So send me questions, please, colin@wildfoods.co, or drop them in the comments and I'll curate those and answer them on the next episode. I'm thinking about putting this out every Saturday. I think that's what I'm gonna do, every Saturday. And then every Tuesday is gonna be the standard carnivore-based video that can help you sustain and maybe even start a carnivore diet. So today I got three things. I want to talk about thoughts of carnivore as a trend, thoughts about flexible carnivore, the carnivore mindset, the pandemic video, and some comments that people were leaving. Now, I realize this is actually a lot of topics. I could probably talk for 20 minutes, but I want to keep this short and sweet. Maybe average of 10 minutes an episode, okay? Thoughts about carnivore as a trend. I think we're going to grow a little bit, and I think it's going to taper off, and then I think it might fall out of favor or at least lose some of its steam, but I'm not sure. I don't know what level it's going to reach. I don't think it's ever going to reach the level of keto. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a niche trend, because, you know, I mean, it's meat only. Like, it's, a lot of people think it's kind of crazy. But as I've talked about in the past, it's not that far off from the way most people eat if they just remove certain toxic foods from their plate. And then some days they just decided to not have any sides with their steak or their beef or whatever. It's like, it's not that crazy if you think about it that way. If you actually look how much of a percentage of your calories is generally animal products, the average person eats a lot of their calories from animal products. Maybe they're not choosing the best animal products, and maybe they have toxic certain grains and legumes and beans and all these other things on the side, and, you know, obviously greens and whatever. If most people just curated their plates a little bit more strategically, they could be way more closer to the flexible carnivore end of the spectrum. I think the trend, maybe it shapes into something that is like animal based and we call it that instead of carnivore. I'm not sure. I do think that the idea that carnivore should be meat only, 100% meat, I think that is going to fall out of favor a little bit. And I think that's probably a good thing, only because it's going to help those that don't need to do a fully meat only diet and that never will do that. I think we'll reach more people. The people that have autoimmune issues or that are doing it for certain health reasons, they're going to always do a pure 100% carnivore. But I think what we need is more of like a flexible carnivore approach to try to bring more people in to understanding these principles of ancestral health and why you want to eat this way and why is ancestrally appropriate, etc. So I do think moving to a little bit more of a less dogmatic, less rigid carnivore-based approach is going to be how we can reach more people and potentially grow the movement a little bit more. Speaking of flexible carnivore, that's what I've been doing for a while, and there's some pros and cons. I find that I do have more variety. There is some enjoyment factors, being able to add certain things in the diet, but you do have to really balance the foods that you're adding into your diet and how often, because you can definitely pay the price. Gut health, I have had back pain flare up, issues in the bathroom, it's just inconsistent. Like, there's definitely something to be said about when you go strict carnivore, it does simplify things for all that. And so I haven't really found that happy medium where I can have a little bit of certain plant foods, or maybe if I want some white rice here and there, or whatever, I can throw that in and it not like throw everything out of whack. There's some days where I do that and I feel completely fine. And there's some days I do it, or maybe it's a culmination of days where it seems to add up and then my gut is kind of like bloated and I don't really feel the great. Maybe I got a headache here and there. These are all side effects I found of having some of those more toxic plant foods kind of slip in. And I'm still choosing options that are super clean. It's not like if it's organic white rice, you know, or it's like a really good organic vegetable, local, whatever that we sauteed up. Maybe it's a little bit of organic broccoli. We have a lot of sweet potatoes. It's not like I'm just chomping on processed, refined crap food. It's still whole, real food. And it does seem that if I have that more, it has a cumulative effect where my body has to like process it out. And so I haven't really answered that question yet. I'm going to be curious to see, you know, after doing it for 6 months, 12 months of primarily carnivore, how my body responds to certain foods. And like I talked about in the first point, I do want to be able to promote more of a flexible carnivore approach because I want to be able to reach more people with this very important message that animal-based nutrition is it's the foundation for human nutrition and health. It just is. It doesn't mean it's 100% animals, right? Because most of our ancestors wouldn't have eaten that way. They would have always had some plant things probably slip into their diet, and they would have taken advantage of, if there was a berry on a tree and it looked good, they'd eat it. Or if there was a thing of honey they found, they would eat it. Like, we have to kind of keep these things in perspective. And that leads me to my next point about being dogmatic about carnivore. We want to try to keep an open mind and understand that other than very severe autoimmune issues where you do have certain sensitivities to certain foods, most people are going to do okay on some kind of flexible carnivore approach. I also think that having those foods added to your diet here and there, even if it's just merely as like a stressor / variety variable, I think there's some benefit there. There's also some benefit shown in research with protein fasting, where you eat like 10 or 15 grams of protein a day. And that would, again, mimic what it would have been like for our ancestors, because our ancestors didn't have freezers full of grass-fed beef frozen, ready to go. They would have had to go out and get their food. And there would have been times when they wouldn't have been successful. And they could have gone periods of time, maybe 3, 4, 5 days a week on end, without actually having any protein-rich meat source. And so like that is definitely something that I think our ancestors would have struggled with. And that's why you look at any diet, when you mix things up, to an extent, of course, when you mix things up, there's usually some positive benefits to be found there. So I think the idea is we always want to try to think about what our ancestors would have actually done, and they would have had a varied approach. Things would have been random and varied and inconsistent. And, you know, if you're struggling with weight loss or plateaus or anything like that right now, consider mixing things up with meal timing, more protein, less fat. You know, maybe you have more carbs on some days, or throwing in certain things here and there, and just experiment and see how your body responds. I put out a pandemic video recently, which you can see here, and I had the kind of carnivore staples of what we were stocking up on that are carnivore approved. The second part of the video, I recommended some foods that you'd want to have that are kind of flexible carnivore that you're going to want to have if there's food scarcity. And it's funny because people have such a hard time reconciling the fact that not everything in life is black or white. And so there's a couple comments about how, oh, rice is stupid, or rice isn't carnivore, don't do that, or whatever. And I'm just thinking to myself, dude, this video is about carnivore staples during a pandemic if there's a food shortage. You're going to want, like I used in the video, the example, a 50-pound bag of white rice, which is something like 80,000 calories, if you can't get food from the grocery store. You're going to want to have that. And if we actually really go deep and the food system breaks down, the economy breaks down, and you literally can't get food for weeks or months on end, you're not going to be having any of comments about whether a food is carnivore or not when you're not even eating. So this again highlights the importance of not being dogmatic about things, and the reality that most things in life are not black or white. They're always somewhere in the middle, right? So Aristotle called this the golden mean. You have far extreme over here, you have far extreme over here. So north, south, you know, black, white, positive, negative. And most things in life are somewhere in the middle. That's called the golden mean he talked about. It's the dose that is just enough. It's not too little, not too much. Also known as the Goldilocks effect, if referring to basically Earth, because it's the perfect temperature for humans. Most things in life are gray, yet humans try to separate into us versus them. This is tribalistic tendency that's rooted from our ancestral past. It's why politics are so divisive. It's why online things usually end up becoming, well, you believe this, I believe this, let's go back and forth. It's probably one of the biggest things that we're gonna have to overcome as a species in this modern connected future that we're living in, is this idea that things in life aren't black or white, and you don't have to like somebody to agree with them, and you can disagree with people you do like, and it's not always universal. It's not always every idea someone's going to have you have to agree with or like. And so much of the failings of the human mind come down to this likability bias and this tribalistic tendency to separate reality and life into us versus them. This box versus that box. This is simple. It's a heuristic. It's easier for us. We don't have to think as much. And if you think about this, again, from an ancestral perspective, expending calories in the wild, you better make sure you're thinking about something important. Humans try to not think. We generally don't want to think. We want to plug into YouTube or whatever and just be entertained and maybe not have to think too hard. So we look for mental shortcuts known as heuristics, and we fall victim to things like cognitive bias. I don't want to go into that today, but I highly recommend reading into mental models. Look at some of Charlie Munger's quotes and things he talks about with mental models. It's how Berkshire Hathaway's been able to become billionaires, is because they use certain mental models and they understand the trappings of the human mind, and they don't make the same bad decisions that a lot of investors make when they get emotional. A lot of things here. Really fascinating concept. I love exploring this stuff. In fact, if you're still with me, you're still here, check out the Shut Up No One Cares Get Back to Work podcast. I'll drop a link below. That's a new show that I launched on mindset, productivity, how to think, and other principles, bigger ideas that are going to help you become a better human. If you're here and you're interested in betterment, you're going to definitely get some value over there. I cover a wide swath of topics, and I've been doing basically a show every other day that I'm really excited about. You can also find it on iTunes app, all the places that you can get podcasts, basically. You can also just go to colin.coach, and then right there in the front, you'll see the Daily Shut Up podcast. And if you haven't already, join the AM5 newsletter so you can get all the weekly content every week and a bite-sized email that you can easily scroll and skim, and then pick the things you like that kind of strike your fancy, read those, watch those, whatever, and then hopefully become a better human. And that's going to be it for this Carnivore Corner. Let me know if there's some things you'd like me to see, do more of, do less of, any feedback whatsoever, and ideally just like what you would want to see on a weekly basis. Like what things could I cover? What different similar topics could I address, and or different themes that I could kind of bring up? Anything. And of course, again, questions too. Colin@wildfoods.co. Thanks for watching this one, and then hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Hey, Colin here. Thanks for watching that video. I got a free PDF for you, The 7 Principles of Living Wild. Short and sweet, not long, not gonna be a novel you have to read or anything, just a simple reference of the things that make you a healthy human. So click on the button below, get that right now, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.